This is the story of the most wanted man in the world. The story of a man so evil that just hearing his name sends shivers down the spine of everyone around the globe. And I'm not talking about someone like Hannibal Lecter or Jeffrey Dahmer, but someone far more sinister, Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. His father, Mohammed bin Laden, was a wealthy contractor who had extensive ties to the Saudi royal family through lucrative construction contracts. He was awarded these contracts largely due to his close relationship with King Faisal, who ruled Saudi Arabia from 1964 to 1975. Bin Laden Sr. was known for his extravagant lifestyle and reportedly had over 500 wives. Although Osama was his 17th child and not even a full-blooded son, he still enjoyed a life of privilege growing up in a large mansion in Jeddah with his 50-plus siblings. Despite his privileged upbringing, young Osama was deeply influenced by conservative Islamic teachings. His mother, a strict religious woman, played a significant role in shaping his early beliefs. When Osama was 13 years old, his father was assassinated by the Saudi authorities, allegedly on the orders of King Khalid after he criticized the king's pro-Western policies. Following his father's death, Osama and his mother relocated to the coastal city of Jeddah, where his uncle provided financial support. There, Osama attended an exclusive private school called al-Tawhid, which followed a strict Islamic curriculum. It was here that he developed his hatred for Westerners, especially Americans, who he saw as enemies of Islam. In 1975, at the age of 18, Osama traveled to the United States to study. However, he did not succeed in his studies and returned to Saudi Arabia soon after. He then enrolled in King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah to study economics and business. During this time, he became increasingly radicalized by the teachings of fundamentalist preachers such as Sheikh Muhammad Ibn, a notorious extremist who advocated violence against non-Muslims and Western influence in Saudi Arabia. After graduating in 1979, Osama secured a job at his father's company, expanding his family's fortune. But his thoughts were already elsewhere. The defining transformation in Osama's life came that same year when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. Inspired by religious fervor and influenced by radical preachers, Osama dropped everything to join the Afghan resistance. He left behind his luxurious life in Saudi Arabia and headed to the war-torn country to fight the Soviets. The following year, he founded the militant group al-Qaeda and began actively recruiting volunteers to fight against the Soviets. Initially, Osama's efforts focused on raising funds and organizing fighters rather than engaging in combat himself. With his business acumen, he established a network of charities and foundations across the Middle East, channeling donations from wealthy sympathizers to support the jihad in Afghanistan. It was long before Osama's contributions caught the attention of other extremist groups and figures in the region. He forged connections with like-minded individuals such as Abdul, an Egyptian Islamic fundamentalist, who had been in Afghanistan since 1984 together. They helped establish a training camp for foreign fighters and developed a strategy for attracting and managing volunteers from various countries. Osama's organizational skills and ASM's militant experience proved to be a potent combination as they attracted thousands of volunteers to their cause. Among them was a charismatic and ruthless Egyptian named Ayman al, who would later become one of the most influential members of al-Qaeda. As the war in Afghanistan intensified, Osama found himself drawn into the battlefield. Unlike many of his recruits, he had no formal military training, but he quickly learned the tactics and strategies of guerrilla warfare under the guidance of seasoned commanders. In the rugged terrain of Afghanistan, Osama proved to be a fearless fighter, willing to risk his life to defend his comrades and advance the cause of jihad. His bravery and dedication earned him the respect and admiration of the other mujahideen, many of whom were half his age. However, it was his unwavering commitment to the jihad that truly set him apart. While some fighters eventually returned home after the Soviet withdrawal, Osama remained in Afghanistan, seeing the country as the perfect base for his global jihad. By 1989, with the Soviets expelled from Afghanistan, Osama's ideology had hardened significantly. He now saw all Westerners, not just Americans, as enemies of Islam, and he began planning attacks against them. At a secret meeting in Sudan in 1990, he announced the formation of a global jihad movement, vowing to drive Western influence out of Muslim countries and establish a worldwide Islamic state. But this was not all that he was hiding. In the meantime, Osama had married twice and had several children, but it was his second wife, Niwa al-Ghamdi, who would play a crucial role in his life. She was the daughter of a wealthy Saudi family, and her father had apparently made a small donation to al-Qaeda when he married her. She already had a son from her previous marriage, and Osama took the boy in as his own. Little did he know that this stepchild would one day become infamous as Osama bin Laden Jr., aka Hamza bin Laden. Hamza was born in 1989 and grew up knowing little of his father. The couple divorced amicably in 1995, but Osama continued to provide financial support for the sake of Hamza. Osama also had at least 4 sons and 2 daughters with his third wife, Siham Sabah. Now we know where Kim Kardashian got her contouring skills from, but jokes aside, the Saudi government was becoming increasingly concerned about Osama's activities and the threat he posed to the kingdom's security. They pressured the Sudanese government to arrest him, but he managed to evade capture and slipped out of Sudan in the late 1990s. Eventually, he found his way to the remote mountains of northeastern Afghanistan, where he established a new al-Qaeda training camp. Here, his followers underwent rigorous physical and ideological training, learning everything from combat and explosives to religious doctrine and martyrdom. But things didn't last too long, as the September 11th attacks changed everything. On that fateful day, Osama's life changed dramatically. The attacks, planned and executed by al-Qaeda, shocked the world and immediately drew the attention of the U.S. government. Within days, Osama's whereabouts were discovered in Afghanistan, and the U.S. military began dropping bombs on al-Qaeda and Taliban targets. As American troops closed in on his location, Osama knew that his time was running out. So he abandoned his compound and fled into the mountains, leaving behind all of his worldly possessions, including his wives and children. With the help of sympathetic villagers, he evaded capture and slipped through the mountains, evading U.S. soldiers who had been hot on his trail. All the while, he remained defiant, issuing audio and video messages in which he claimed responsibility for the attacks and justified them as retaliation for perceived wrongs done by the U.S. government. He lived in the caves of Tora Bora for months, subsisting on a diet of goat meat and drinking water from a nearby stream. Despite the harsh conditions, Osama's resolve never wavered. He continued to plan attacks against the U.S. and its allies, believing that he could not only evade capture, but ultimately triumph over his enemies. But his luck would eventually run out, and in May 2011, a tip from a local tribesman led to his location in a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. U.S. Navy SEALs descended on the compound in a daring raid, killing Osama bin Laden and ending his reign of terror once and for all. If you liked this video, make sure to check out this one instead. Osama bin Laden was born in 1957 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, into a wealthy and influential family connected to the Saudi royal family through construction contracts. His father, Mohammed bin Laden, was a successful businessman who had ties to the Saudi royal court, and his mother was from a prominent Yemeni family. Despite being the 17th of over 50 children, Osama enjoyed a privileged upbringing and received an elite education. Although not a member of the Saudi royal family, Mohammed bin Laden's businesses, interests, and close relationship with the royals gave his son certain For example, Osama and his full siblings attended Al-Yamama School in Riyadh, an exclusive institution reserved for the princes and high-ranking officials' children. After completing primary school, Osama continued his education at a secondary school affiliated with the kingdom's elite military academy. It was here that he received intensive religious instruction that would have a profound impact on his future. One of his teachers, Sheikh Musa al-Arifi, reportedly instilled in him and other students a deep hatred for non-Muslims, particularly Americans. According to Arifi, he taught students that fighting against America was a religious duty. Some reports even claim that the teacher encouraged young Osama to martyr himself. After graduating from high school in 19, Osama enrolled in King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah to study economics and business. However, it was during this time that he became increasingly drawn to Islamic fundamentalism and began distancing himself from his family's affluent lifestyle. A turning point came when he met the radical cleric Abdullah Azam, who was a supporter of violent jihad. Azam's teachings, along with those of other militant preachers, greatly influenced Osama and his younger brother Selim. They, along with several other Saudi students, formed a small radical cell that discussed plans to overthrow the Saudi government and establish a stricter Islamic state. The group also harbored resentment towards the presence of American troops in Saudi Arabia, which had been allowed by the Saudi government following the Iranian Revolution in 1979. The Saudis perceived the U.S. military as a potential threat to their stability and saw the presence of Western influence as a challenge to their conservative values. While Osama initially did not join the group, he shared some of their anti-Western sentiments. The Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in December 1979 marked a pivotal moment in Osama's life. Witnessing the conflict between the Afghan Mujahideen and the Soviet forces, Osama became convinced that he had a religious duty to participate in the jihad. He saw the war in Afghanistan as a chance to drive the communists out of a Muslim country and felt compelled to contribute to the struggle. Despite opposition from his family, particularly his father, who feared for his safety, Osama left university without graduating and traveled to Peshawar in northwest Pakistan, the main base for foreign volunteers joining the jihad. In Pakistan, Osama linked up with Salem and other Saudi militants who had come to support the Afghan resistance. Initially, their efforts focused on sending money, weapons, and recruits to the front lines, but later Osama played a key role in shifting the focus toward training camps. Realizing the need for better prepared fighters, Osama established a camp near the Afghan border in 1983. By the end of the decade, there were at least 7 such camps run by the organization. These camps not only trained thousands of mujahideen but also became a hub for international fighters from around the world, including Arabs, Turks, Chechens, Germans and Americans flocked to these camps to learn combat skills and embrace radical jihadist ideology. Among them were men who would later become notorious for their involvement in global terrorism, like Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who masterminded the 9/11 attacks, and Ramzi Youssef, responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing attempt. In addition to military training, the camps offered religious classes, where students were taught a strict and uncompromising version of Sunni Islam. Bin Laden himself lectured on topics like jihad, martyrdom, and the duty of Muslims to expel foreign invaders from Muslim lands. During this time, Osama's own beliefs hardened and he became a leading figure among the international jihadist community. His commitment to the cause led him to declare war against both the Soviet Union and the United States. In an audio message released in 1988, he criticized the Saudis for their alliance with the US and warned of an impending confrontation. Around this time, Osama married one of his father's widows, a marriage that was not uncommon in Middle Eastern culture. The union produced 2 children and brought Osama closer to his father, although Osama bin Laden disapproved of his older son's involvement in extremist activities. Stories of his daring exploits, though often exaggerated among the ranks of the Mujahideen. Meanwhile, his administrative skills became evident as he oversaw the distribution of aid and supplies to the various factions involved in the jihad. Bin Laden's contributions did not go unnoticed. He gained recognition as a leader and strategist, which would later play a significant role in shaping his trajectory. The Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan in 1989 and the subsequent collapse of the communist regime, there was a major victory for the Mujahideen and a defining moment for Osama. With the departure of the Soviets, the conflict took a new turn as different factions of the Mujahideen, each supported by various external powers, fought for control of the country. Amidst the power struggle, Osama saw an opportunity to expand his influence. He exploited the chaos and instability, using it to further his own agenda and solidify his position as a leader within the jihadist movement. At the same time, he began to shift his focus from the war in Afghanistan to a broader global jihad. Inspired by his experiences in Afghanistan, Osama wanted to extend the principles and strategies of violent jihad beyond a single regional conflict. He envisioned a worldwide struggle against what he saw as the enemies of Islam, particularly the United States and its allies. By the early 1990s, Osama bin Laden had emerged as a prominent figure in the international jihadist movement, known for his fierce commitment to violent jihad and his opposition to Western influence in Muslim countries. As the war in Afghanistan continued and the political landscape of the region shifted, Osama recognized the need to adapt and evolve. With the decline of the Soviet Union, he turned his attention to new conflicts and potential fronts for jihad while continuing to solidify his position in Afghanistan. The changing dynamics of the global stage set the stage for Osama's evolving plans and ambitions. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to watch more episodes like this, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to watch more episodes like this, please subscribe to my channel. When it comes to the ultimate most wanted people, few names strike fear into the hearts of as many people as Osama bin Laden. After the horrific events of September 11, 2001, this man became public enemy. No one in America. But despite being the leader of al-Qaeda, there was very little the authorities knew about bin Laden himself. They didn't know where he was or even what he looked like. The only thing they knew was that he was responsible for killing thousands of innocent people, and it was their duty to bring him to justice. He wanted to live his life according to the Quran and spread the word of Allah to every part of the world. However, not everything was perfect in his life. In 1979, he attended university in his native country to be an engineer, but his studies were interrupted by the Iranian Revolution. While some saw this event as a triumph of the oppressed against the Shah, bin Laden viewed it as an example of non-Muslims betraying Muslims. To defend Islam, he traveled to Afghanistan to join the war against the Soviet Union. There, he gained military experience and made valuable contacts with like-minded radicals who would later form al-Qaeda. But despite his newfound purpose, he never forgot about his studies and earned a degree in civil engineering in 1982. This time was fundamental to shaping the radical cleric into the international terrorist we know today. During the 1990s, bin Laden lived in Sudan and Afghanistan, expanding al-Qaeda's network. And when the Taliban seized power in Afghanistan, he was able to set up training camps where terrorists could learn everything from bomb making to combat tactics. These men came from all over the world, united by their hatred for the West, and in bin Laden they had a charismatic leader who inspired them to do great evil. The 9/11 attacks were the culmination of years of planning and propaganda. Bin Laden used a combination of religion, nationalism, and anti-Western sentiment to motivate his followers to carry out attacks on civilians. It was a bold and effective strategy, and the results were devastating. In the aftermath of the attacks, bin Laden released a videotaped statement claiming responsibility and vowing more attacks in the future. He called the attacks a response to the presence of American troops in Saudi Arabia and other Muslim countries. But many believe that bin Laden's true motivation was simply a desire for power and recognition. After 9/11, bin Laden became the world's most wanted man, but he managed to evade capture for nearly a decade. U.S. forces invaded Afghanistan in 2001 to dismantle the Taliban regime that had sheltered him, but bin Laden slipped through the mountains of Tora Bora. Even today, nobody knows exactly how he escaped. Although wounded during the battle, he survived and fled across the border into Pakistan, where he lived in exile for several years. As the leader of al-Qaeda, he continued to plot attacks against the West, including the 2004 Madrid train bombings and the 2005 London bombings. But all the while he remained hidden away in Pakistan. Bin Laden had chosen wisely. The tribal areas of Pakistan's northwest frontier province were virtually impenetrable to outsiders. Living among the locals, he was able to blend in and avoid detection. For years, he lived a simple life as a farmer, raising crops and livestock and living in a small mud hut. He rarely ventured out in public, and when he did, he always wore a disguise. Despite being half a world away from the US, bin Laden still managed to communicate with his followers around the globe. Using coded messages and false identities, he was able to plan attacks and inspire terrorism without ever being detected. He had access to a small group of trusted confidants who kept him informed of events in the outside world. They brought him food, water, and other supplies, as well as news of the progress of the war in Afghanistan. Although bin Laden was cut off from the outside world, his confidants made sure he was always aware of what was happening. It was a lonely existence for the terrorist mastermind, but he was willing to endure it in order to stay one step ahead of the authorities. Bin Laden spent most of his time praying, reading the Quran, and writing. He also spent time with his family, including his wife and children. Despite being wanted for some of the worst crimes against humanity, bin Laden was a devoted husband and father. He took care of his family and provided for them as best he could. While living in his hideout, bin Laden had a surprising amount of luxury. He had electricity, running water, and even satellite television. This was a far cry from the dirt floor hut he claimed to be living in. His bed was comfortable and his meals were plentiful. He also had access to medical care should he need it. Despite the comforts of his hideout, bin Laden was always aware of the danger he was in. He knew that the US was searching for him, and he was prepared to fight to the death if necessary. He had weapons stored in his hut, and he was trained in their use. Although bin Laden was never captured alive, there have been numerous reports of sightings. Some say he was killed in a drone strike in 2006, while others claim to have seen him in the streets of Kabul. There are even rumors that he is living incognito in South Asia under a false identity. But these are just theories, and there is no concrete evidence to support any of them. One of the biggest mysteries surrounding bin Laden's whereabouts is how he was able to evade detection for so long. The US military spent billions of dollars searching for him in Afghanistan and Pakistan, yet they never got close. Some believe that bin Laden had help from within the government of Pakistan, which has been accused of harboring terrorists for years. Others believe that he was able to blend in with the local population and go unnoticed. Whatever the case may be, it's clear that bin Laden was a master of evasion, and it wasn't until May 2nd, 2011 that he was finally killed in a US raid on his compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Despite the loss of bin Laden, al-Qaeda and its offshoots continue to be active around the world. The group has claimed responsibility for numerous attacks in recent years, including the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing and the 2015 San Bernardino attack. Al-Qaeda is a decentralized organization, which means it doesn't rely on a single leader to function. Even without bin Laden at the helm, Al-Qaeda remains a threat to global security. In the wake of bin Laden's death, the US government announced that his body would be buried at sea within 24 hours. This was done to prevent his grave from becoming a shrine for terrorists and to ensure that his remains were not discarded. The announcement was met with mixed reactions. Some people felt that bin Laden's body should have been given to his family for a proper burial, while others felt that the decision was appropriate given his crimes. Ultimately, the decision to bury bin Laden at sea was made in order to prevent his death from being used as propaganda by al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups. The death of Osama bin Laden was a significant event in the fight against terrorism. However, it's important to remember that the war on terror is far from over. Al-Qaeda and its affiliates continue to pose a threat to global security, and it will take a long time. before we can truly say that the world is safe from terrorism. But what do you think about the death of Osama bin Laden? Do you think he got what was coming to him? Or do you believe that his death was a mistake? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this.